The key didn't look like it belonged to anything we owned. It was heavy, wrapped in a polished brass casing, and tucked inside a velvet-lined pocket of my wife's favorite winter coat. My name is Leo. I am 34 years old, and up until 3 weeks ago, I believed I was a man who possessed a thoroughly transparent life. I had a stable job as an architect, a modest colonial house with a lawn that needed constant weeding, and a marriage that felt as solid and predictable as the foundations I drew up for a living. My wife, Maya, was a graphic designer, vibrant, organized, and deeply loved. When a sudden patch of black ice on a Tuesday evening took her away from me instantly, my entire reality shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces. The funeral was a blur of gray umbrellas, lukewarm casseroles, and well-meaning whispers from friends. For days, I sat in our silent home, unable to process the absence of her laughter or the lingering scent of her lavender perfume in the hallways. It wasn't until I finally gathered the strength to clear out her closet that the silence broke. While checking the inner pockets of her heavy woolen coat, my fingers brushed against a cold, hard metallic object hidden behind a loose seam. When I pulled it out, a small plastic tag dangled from the brass key ring. It bore an address etched in block letters, the Pinnacle Crest, Penthouse B. The Pinnacle Crest was a luxury high-rise downtown, a place where a single month's rent exceeded what I made in half a year. Maya had never mentioned it. We had a joint bank account, or so I had always believed, and we painstakingly discussed every major purchase down to our kitchen blender. Why did my late wife possess a key to a luxury penthouse, hidden so meticulously in a coat she only wore on special occasions? The grief in my chest suddenly twisted into an icy knot of confusion. I didn't call anyone. I didn't tell her mother or my brother. I simply tucked the key into my pocket, grabbed my car keys, and drove into the city through a heavy downpour, the windshield wipers slicing rhythmically through the dark. To understand why this moment felt like a physical blow to my chest, you have to understand the life Maya and I had built over our 7 years of marriage. We were the couple our friends pointed to when they wanted to believe in enduring love. Our mornings always started the same way, the rich aroma of hazelnut coffee filling the kitchen, Maya humming a soft tune while flipping pancakes, and me reviewing blueprints at the counter. She was the spontaneous one, always reminding me to breathe when work stress piled up. Leo, a building doesn't have a soul unless the person designing it remembers to live, she would say, gently pressing her warm hands against my tense shoulders. We were saving up to expand the house, hoping to turn the spare upstairs room into a nursery by the end of the year. Our finances were tight but managed with absolute teamwork. Or so I thought. Looking back, there were quiet details I had willfully ignored because I trusted her completely, the way she would occasionally tilt her phone screen away when a notification popped up at dinner, or her frequent late-night client consultations that left her smelling faintly of expensive wood smoke and high-end restaurants rather than her usual studio markers. I had chalked it up to her growing success in the design world. I was proud of her. I never questioned her, because in a real partnership, you don't keep tabs on the person who holds your heart. The elevator ride up to the penthouse of the Pinnacle Crest felt like ascending into an alternate universe. The walls were lined with polished walnut and mirrored glass, reflecting a version of myself that looked completely hollow, pale, exhausted, and haunted by a growing sense of dread. When the doors chimed softly and slid open directly into a private foyer on the top floor, my breath caught in my throat. There was only one door, marked with a sleek, minimalist brass B. My hand shook as I brought the key to the lock. I kept praying that it wouldn't fit, that this was all a massive mistake, a bizarre misunderstanding. But the cylinder turned with a smooth, expensive click. I pushed the door open, stepping onto thick, cream-colored wool carpets. The penthouse was expansive, wrapped in floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the rain-slicked city skyline. But it wasn't the view that made me freeze, it was the decor. The entire space was a monument to a life I had no part in. On the mantel sat framed photographs, not of us, but of Maya standing proudly alongside a wealthy, older man with silver hair and a sharp, calculating smile. On the glass coffee table lay a legal folder, entirely laid bare. I walked over, my boots leaving damp tracks on the pristine carpet. My chest heaved as I opened the folder. They weren't just love letters, they were financial statements, property deeds, and a heavily binding prenuptial agreement. The silver-haired man was Arthur Sterling, a prominent real estate mogul who happened to be Maya's major corporate client. But according to the dates on the marriage certificate nestled beneath the deeds, he wasn't just a client. Maya had married him 3 years ago, a full 4 years into our own marriage. She was a bigamist. She had been living a double life, splitting her weeks between my modest suburban home and this multi-million-dollar skypad, funding her design studio with his immense wealth while playing the part of my frugal, doting wife. "Leo?" A sharp, panicked gasp cut through the silence of the penthouse. I spun around to see a woman standing near the kitchen island, holding a crystal vase. It was Clara, Maya's older sister, the same sister who had always looked at my modest architect salary with a subtle, condescending smirk during family dinners. She didn't look surprised to see me, she looked terrified that I was there now. The vase slipped from her hands, shattering on the hardwood floor, spilling water and white lilies across the room. "What is this, Clara?" I asked, my voice terrifyingly quiet, devoid of the tears that were burning behind my eyes. "What did Maya do?" Clara swallowed hard, her eyes darting to the legal folders in my hands. "Leo, you weren't ever supposed to come here. Maya loved you, she really did. But you couldn't give her the life she wanted. Arthur could. We were just trying to protect her legacy before Arthur's lawyers froze the estate after the accident." The betrayal didn't just pierce my heart, it made me question every memory, every shared smile, and every sacrifice I thought we had made together. Maya hadn't just lied, she had constructed a masterpiece of deception, and her entire family had been the silent audience keeping the curtain up. "She loved me?" I asked, a bitter, hollow laugh escaping my lips. I stepped toward Clara, the legal papers shaking slightly in my grip. "She spent half her week wrapped in luxury with another man, signed a marriage certificate with his name on it, and then came home to eat pancakes at my scratched kitchen table. And you knew. Your whole family knew." Clara backed away, her hands raised defensively. "Leo, listen to me. Arthur is a powerful, dangerous man in the business world. If he finds out Maya was already married to a suburban architect, he won't just freeze her design company's assets, he'll sue our family into bankruptcy for fraud. We were just trying to clear out her personal documents before his security team arrives to audit the penthouse tomorrow morning." The raw injustice of it hit me like a physical wave. They weren't mourning Maya, they were frantically scrambling to protect the stolen wealth and financial comfort her double life had provided them. Maya was gone, and even in death, her memory was being managed like a corporate damage control campaign. "I'm not helping you hide anything, Clara," I said, my voice hardening as a cold, deliberate focus took over my grief. "Leo, please. Think about what this will do to our mother. Think about the scandal." Clara cried out, reaching for the folder in my hands. I pulled it back, out of her reach. "Your mother sat at my father's house last Christmas and talked about the value of honesty, Clara. The scandal isn't mine to carry. It's yours." I didn't stay to argue. I packed the legal folders, the photographs, and the certified copy of the bigamous marriage license into my briefcase. I walked past Clara, leaving her standing amidst the shattered vase and scattered lilies, and took the elevator back down to reality. I had a plan, and it didn't involve screaming in the streets. It involved a quiet, dignified dismantling of their beautifully constructed lies. The next afternoon, the mahogany boardroom of Sterling Developments was dead silent. Arthur Sterling sat across the massive glass table, his silver hair immaculate, his expensive tailored suit making him look every bit the billionaire tycoon he was. Next to him sat his chief legal counsel. On my side of the table, it was just me, my weathered leather briefcase, and the truth. I opened the briefcase and slid the documents across the glass surface. Arthur didn't look angry at first, just annoyed that a middle-class architect had managed to bypass his security to demand a meeting. But as his lawyer flipped through the original marriage certificate from my wedding 7 years ago, followed by the photos of Maya in our home, the billionaire's face turned an ashen gray. "What is the meaning of this?" Arthur asked, his voice low, a dangerous tremor beneath his polished exterior. "The woman you knew as Maya Sterling was Maya Vance," I said, looking him straight in the eye. "She was my wife first, Mr. Sterling. She never divorced me. Every asset she acquired through your marriage, every contract signed under your name, is legally entangled in a web of fraud. Her family is currently clearing out her penthouse to destroy the remaining evidence before your auditors can find it." Arthur leaned back in his leather chair, his jaw tightening until the muscle pulsed. The realization that he, a man who controlled entire city blocks, had been completely fooled by a graphic designer and her family was a blow to his immense pride. He looked at the photos of Maya smiling at our scratched pine kitchen table, then looked at me. For a fleeting second, an unspoken understanding passed between us. We were two men on entirely opposite sides of the world, yet we had both been broken by the exact same ghost. The public consequence wasn't a loud, media-fueled explosion, it was a quiet, systematic erasure that stripped Maya's family of the very status they had sacrificed their integrity to maintain. Arthur Sterling, armed with the evidence I handed him, unleashed his legal team with a cold, corporate fury. Within 48 hours, the penthouse was seized, its locks changed, and every asset tied to Maya's design studio was frozen under a massive fraud investigation. Clara and her mother didn't just lose the financial security they had secretly funneled from Arthur's wealth, they lost their standing in the community. Word spread through our social circles and the local business community like wildfire. People who had once smiled warmly at them turned away when they walked down the street. They had to sell their own family home just to pay back the initial legal fees, eventually moving out of the city entirely, carrying the heavy, unshakable stigma of their exposed greed. Justice wasn't delivered with an axe, it was delivered through the quiet, unyielding weight of the truth. 6 months have passed since that rainy afternoon at the Pinnacle Crest, and the seasons have finally shifted. The heavy winter frost has melted away, making room for the quiet warmth of summer. I still live in our colonial house, but I finally got around to weeding that front lawn. The upstairs spare room isn't a nursery, and it never will be. Instead, I turned it into an open, sunlit drafting studio for my architectural designs. I still drink my hazelnut coffee every morning, sitting at the scratched kitchen table. The scratches are still there, but they don't feel like reminders of a lie anymore, they feel like proof that I survived the storm. I learned that you cannot build a life on a foundation made of secrets, and that true peace doesn't come from holding on to anger. It comes from letting go of the ghost of who you thought someone was, and standing firmly in the reality of who you are. I am 34 years old, and I am finally building a life that is entirely my own, honest, grounded, and free. #### A final reflection from Dad Revenge CR7. My dear friends, as we sit here together at the close of this story, I look at the quiet corners of my own home and think about the fragile nature of trust. We give our hearts to people, entirely assuming they are looking at the same horizon we are, never imagining that they might be living an entirely different life the moment they step out of our sight. It is a uniquely sharp pain to realize that the person you love was a beautifully painted mask. But Leo's journey reminds us that your worth is not defined by someone else's inability to be honest. You don't have to burn the world down to get justice. Sometimes, simply walking away with the truth in your hands is enough to let the fake structures collapse on their own. I want to thank you all for spending this time with me today on Dad Revenge CR7. If Leo's story brought you a sense of clarity, or if it reminded you to cherish the genuinely honest souls in your life, please hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Before I turn the final page on this chapter, I want to ask you one deep, honest question. If you found the keys to a secret life left behind by someone you loved completely, would you have the courage to open that door and face the truth, or would you rather live in the comfort of a beautiful lie? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. Until next time, keep your hearts guarded, your minds clear, and take care of yourselves.